Today is May 2nd, 2026. And this month I turned 60 years old. And Yah this week gave me such a gift. He showed me something in his scripture in Torah that explained what happened to me when I was 10 years old in 1976. I encountered Yah in the thick darkness, and it was real. And I was so shocked and overwhelmed. Even I couldn't hardly believe it. And I didn't tell anyone because I knew at that time, at 10 years old, nobody was going to believe it. And no one will probably believe it now either. But that's okay. Because it's true. And Yah knows. And I know. So sit back and listen to what happened when I encountered Yah in the thick darkness.
The year was 1976, and I was 10 years old. And the nearby playground, the parents were having a muscular dystrophy carnival to raise money for sick children. My mom gave each of me and my two sisters 15 cents. It was all she had. And when we got to the carnival, I noticed there was a raffle for a stuffed dog. The raffle cost 15 cents to enter your name on a piece of paper. And I debated because I really wanted to try to win that dog. But if I gave my 15 cents, I wouldn't be able to do anything else. Not buy a popsicle, not play a game, nothing. And I looked around and I saw all the parents that had come to the carnival with their children. Their dads were getting into their wallets and paying a lot of money so their child could write tons of pieces of paper with their name on it so that they could win the dog because all the kids wanted the dog. But my family was poor because my father had abandoned us, my mom and my two sisters and I. And at this time, the wind started to blow and I could hear and feel that there was a storm brewing. And also, a carpenter bee kept flying around my head and I didn't like bees and I kept trying to shoo the carpenter bee away, but it kept bothering me. And finally I turned away from the crowd and I looked out past the baseball field and towards the mountains where the storm was brewing. And I spoke to Yah in my mind. And I didn't call Yah by his name Yah at that time. I called him God. But I said, God, I'm going to be honest right now. I'm a kid and we don't have much and I really want that dog. But even if I don't get the dog, I'm going to go ahead and give my 15 cents and I won't be able to do anything else at the carnival. But I'm realizing something. We don't have much, but I've got my mom. I have my two sisters and we're healthy. We have enough food and we have a roof over our head and none of us are sick. I'm not like the kids they're raising money for. I can run and play. I'm healthy. I'm so grateful for everything you've done for us. And so, even though I really want the dog, I'd rather give my money, my 15 cents, to help the kids that don't have it as good as I do. So I gave my money to the woman holding the glass jar and collecting the names. And I wrote my name on the piece of paper and handed it to her, and she put it into the jar with all the other names. By this time, the storm had really covered the sky, and the wind was blowing so hard. And I turned again and I looked out over the baseball field to the clouds over the mountain, and all of a sudden there was a voice that came from up within the cloud, the loudest booming voice, and it said, Melissa. And the minute the voice said my name, everything froze. The wind stopped, the noise stopped. All the people stopped. They froze. I looked up and I noticed that even the bee that had been hovering above my head and bothering me, it was just frozen there, frozen in time. And I knew it was God's voice. You couldn't deny that it was God that said my name. I was nervous and scared and confused. I didn't know why everyone was standing there frozen, and how in the world could the bee be hovering there without flapping its wings? And yet I was able to move around and observe everything. I looked at my sisters frozen in time. I looked at the woman who was frozen holding the glass jar. I looked out over the baseball field. Even the birds were just hanging there frozen in time. Not a sound. And I wasn't too scared. I just didn't know if I was going to be stuck like this forever. Then Yah spoke to me again from the cloud, and he said, Melissa, I love you, and you can have the dog. And as he was saying those very last words, it was like all of a sudden, slowly, the sound came back. The people began to move, and I watched as the woman with the glass jar and the names reach slowly into the jar and pull out a piece of paper. And then all time came back to normal speed as she opened the paper and read my name. I was now frozen there in shock. I couldn't understand what just happened. How did that piece of paper out of all those names get placed into that woman's hand? How did God do it? And at this point, my sisters were jumping up and down, pulling at my arm, excited, saying, You won, you won. But at that moment, winning didn't mean anything. I had just seen frozen time. I had just heard from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and saw his power that he could freeze everything. He blessed me and gave me what I had asked for. As my sisters and I walked home carrying that big dog, I just didn't care about it anymore. I didn't care about anything. All I could think about was the experience that I just had and the realization that nobody that was present there, not my sisters, no one, had experienced or heard what I did. They had no idea they were frozen there in time as I walked around and observed. That scene and Yah's voice is ingrained in my mind. I think about it often all these 50 years since it happened. And I've been searching, trying to find if anyone else in Scripture experienced frozen time. And finally, Yah showed me. And we find this in Exodus 10, verses 21 through 23. And Yah said unto Moses, Stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. So let's break this down. And we're going to start with the thick darkness. And in Hebrew, those words are afala choshev, and it means darkness or obscurity, hiddenness, deep and dense darkness that can be felt. And they saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. So this didn't say that the Egyptians were stumbling around and confused and bumping into things because of the darkness. That is not what it's saying. It's saying not only could they not see anything, but they literally could not move from the place they were standing. This is what Yah showed me. They were literally frozen in time. They didn't know what was happening. They couldn't even move, just like the people at the carnival. When Yah spoke and the thick darkness was upon us. And at that very moment of time, I couldn't understand why everyone else was frozen, but I could still move. I could see everything. I could hear everything. I was fine, but they were frozen. But why? And now I know, because just like in Egypt, the Egyptians were all frozen in time, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. So why could I move about? Just like the children of Israel, is because Yah made a distinction between who is his and who is not. At that very time, Yah was setting me apart. He knew he was giving me understanding and clarity because I was his. And he proved that when he said to me, Melissa, I love you. Deuteronomy 4, verses 34 through 37. Or has Elohim attempted to go and take him, a nation from the midst of another nation, by trials, by signs, and by wonders, and by war, and by a mighty hand, and by a stretched out arm, and by great terrors, according to all that Yah your Elohim did for you in Egypt before your eyes? Unto you it was shown, that you might know that Yah, He is Elohim. There is none else beside Him. Out of heaven He made you to hear His voice, that He might instruct you, and upon earth He showed you His great fire, and you heard His words out of the midst of the fire. And because He loved your fathers, therefore He chose their seed after them, and brought you out in His sight with His mighty power out of Egypt. And Jeremiah 31 verse 3, Yah has appeared of old unto me, saying, Yes, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore with loving kindness have I drawn you. Yah loves Israel. He has kept His covenant. And that's what He was saying. He wanted me to know and understand who I was and who He is to us and His power. And that He was separating me and allowing me to be in His presence. And I still was able to move about when the other nations could not. Exodus 20, verse 18 through 21. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak you with us, and we will hear. But let not Elohim speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for Elohim is come to prove you, and that His fear may be before your faces, that you sin not. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where Elohim was. So this same darkness that froze the Egyptians and froze the people at the playground is the same darkness that Moses was allowed to walk into, to enter. The same darkness that I was allowed to move around and witness. So dependent on who you are in the thick darkness and your relationship with Yah at that moment depends on if you're frozen or if you can move and see. So that's what happened to me in 1976 when I was 10 years old. And it is the truth. And it did happen. And I've learned so much since then. So to the people Yah is choosing right now, don't be like the people at the mountain that chose to step back and not enter the thick darkness for fear. Step into the thick darkness with Yah's presence like Moses. Isaiah 60 verses 1 through 2. Arise! Shine, for your light is come, and the glory of Yah is risen upon you. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But Yah shall arise upon you, and His glory shall be seen upon you. The question is not if the darkness will come. The question is, where will you be standing with Yah when it does?